Crossroads channel of Light Fluid. We are back with some more Lyre, and yes, I did remember I actually hadn't updated the VN in a while, so I just downloaded the latest version, so you'll see a slight change in the title screen here. Oh, if you remember, we're getting very, very close to the trial. Will we find out who killed Raynar? Why don't we go back into it and see what happens? I turn my head and place a kiss on his face. I love you, Lyre. The cold air wraps around my feet like a thick cloth. It hurts to open my eyes, but they stay open anyway. I pull the cloth tighter around me and realise it doesn't feel like Lyre at all. Tears start to form in the corners of my eyes, a few of them streaming down the side of my face. I try to close my eyes in the hopes I can pick up where my dream left off. I now realise this is the first pleasant dream I've had in a long time. As my body succumbs to exhaustion, a thought enters my mind. I should have asked the headsman if he knew how Lyre was doing. I've avoided sleep for the past few days. Or rather, sleep has been avoiding me. No matter how much I yearn or how hard I try, it always seems just out of reach. The tender feeling of resting my body into the warm embrace of unconsciousness feels like a distant memory. Hope turns to sand falling between my fingers. My determination is like the flame of a candle. I can't let it go out, though. I feel it's the only thing I have left of myself. It feels like it's been ages since I've closed my eyes. My eyelids feel like dry leather, and the eyes beneath them burn with a searing pain. Reality feels like a blur. It's a similar feeling to when I wake up from a strange dream. It takes a moment to process everything around me. Even without any sleep, I still dream. My eyes are open and I'm wide awake, but I still dream. I dream of Lyre, stripped of his armour and thrown before the steps of the throne. His scar over his eye bleeds, dripping blood onto the branches of the throne. Each drop sprouts a flower, bloom in a beautiful crimson colour. When the blood is spent, the flowers wilt. With that, a knife slides between my ribs. I dream of Liz, clad in the armour of an angel. She rides a bear, eyes black as night and fur matted with blood. Her gaze is cold and conflicting. Again, lightning strikes outside the windows, my rack of antlers rip through the drapes. I then dream of Raynar. He stands before a window, left antler made of gold, his towering figure bathed in red light from the flames below. A long, slender sword falls from his hand, clattering on the floor. Cold steel drags across my throat. My dreams have slowly begun to merge with my visions. Like the mind's eye, they all swirl into a spiral, mixing together like a whirlpool, dragging me down deeper and deeper into the chasm of the past. The visions mock me as I seek out answers. I'm too stubborn to realise I'm already out of time, I suppose. The day of the trials arrived. I'm still no closer than I was 9 days ago. I can't help but wonder if I'd be closer had I not tried to rush things. Dwelling on it won't do me any good, though. Sorry, Tigran. There's a long silence followed by a ringing in my ears. At first I think they're just not going to respond, but after a few moments they let out a reply. Don't. They're muffled, almost like they're talking into a pillow. Tigran? Are you even there? Another long moment of silence before they respond, this time a bit more clear. Yes. I'm still here, but not for long. I can hear an easy tone in their voice as the words catch in their throat. What do you mean? The trial is today. This time their tone is a bit more stern. It's our connection. It's growing weaker by the day. Our connection? I think back to when they were first beginning to reach me. Seems like forever ago, but in reality it's only been a few weeks. Their voice was so muffled and sometimes I barely noticed them. Why is our connection weak? Will it get better? Tigran takes a deep breath and answers. They sound like they're on the other side of a door. It's not your fault at all. The fault lies entirely with me. The reason our connection is growing weak is because I've been pushing you. I wanted to make sure you'd have enough time to train, but I also wanted you to play it safe. I now realize that I've only made things worse. Don't say that. I can feel I'm getting close. With just a few more tries, I'm sure I'll be able to figure all of this out. I try to put out an optimistic attitude, but it comes off more as false hope. I'm sure they can sense that. You don't need to reassure me. If one thing is true, it's the fact that I failed you. Nobody has ever trained as hard and fast as you have. You have more potential than I ever imagined. My power is simply not what it used to be. It wasn't enough. I stand up and walk over to the window, resting my arms on the cold stone in the opening. What do you mean by that? If anything, you give me a chance. It's something I have to admit. Even with all the rules and restrictions put on their power and all the knowledge they have to keep to themselves, they've only been trying to help me. But I also can't help but remember that this relationship goes both ways. They're helping me so I can do their bidding. I can't help but wonder, why me? I know I wasn't exactly chosen, but it feels odd that all of this would start to happen the moment I end up in this position. Coincidental, even. I only mean that I'm limited in my ability, but it's because of a sacrifice I had to make. Sacrifice in what? I think back to Alverton, the monkey from the vision I had, and I feel a lump form in my throat. Nothing like that, I assure you. They read into my mind again. I'm a bit used to it by now, but not entirely numb to the feeling. Then again, the thought of them sacrificing Alverton was almost as intrusive as Tigran is. My powers were once beyond your comprehension. I was on a similar standing with the higher gods. Their voice wavers, and it's like listening to them while my ears are clogged with water. We were all creators in our own right, controlling laws and ideas, helping the world turn. It sounds less interactive than the role I play now, I understand, but the power was immense. However, it was nothing without control. Like a farm, crops can grow and animals can breed, but we'll always need a farmer. Someone to control and guide. I was the first of the gods to realize this. Hearing them speak of the higher gods causes me to feel a bit sick. Trying to understand it all is a bit easier as time goes on, the overwhelming feeling of it never really goes away. This sacrifice that they mentioned also doesn't leave my mind. The sacrifice you made, does it have anything to do with Alverton? It was for Alverton. I sacrificed my power for Alverton and the world he knew. The state of the world was heading down a path of decay, and I knew I had to do something. I brought it to the attention of my fellow gods. They were quite content with seeing things play out, knowing that they could always start over. I was not willing to settle for such an outcome. I hear a distant rumbling sound. Cannot determine if it's coming from within my head or somewhere outside. I proposed giving up most of my power and freedom in order to give the world a second chance. With this trade, I would be allowed an avatar, a mortal vessel which I would be able to use as an emissary of sorts. They would be able to understand past mistakes and pave a path for a brighter future. They would act as a guide for the world, and I would act as a guide for them. Thank you for answering my questions, but why are you telling me about all of these other things? I tell you this because it is relevant. Is there any way I can stop our connection from growing weaker? Can you do anything about it? Yes. That sacrifice I made for Alverton. I'm going to make a similar sacrifice for you. What? Don't think too much about it. The ribbon that binds us is weakening, and I need to take action. You've done your part to get us out of this situation, to allow me to do mine. What are you going to do? What are you talking about? Someone's going to come down here for me any minute now. I need you. Don't worry. I'm just going to consult with the higher gods. Their voice becomes more and more distant. I can't help but feel like I'm losing a part of myself. If everything goes the way I plan, you'll come out of this with your head still on your shoulders. I will be back. Please take care and trust in me. I step away from the window, eyes looking up into the air as if they were standing right there. You have to believe me when I tell you that everything will turn out okay. No, even if it seems like it won't. You have to have faith. Their voice trails off with each word. You don't have to do this. I'm close. I can... Tigran? There isn't a response. For the first time in weeks, my mind feels empty. I clumsily sit down on the cold slab of stone. The silence is almost numbing. It's like a weight was taken off from my chest, but something inside of me was taken along with it. Tigran? I still receive no response. This can't be happening. No. Please tell me this isn't happening. It's not even the fact that they're gone. As abrupt as it was, I know they'll be back. They said they would. The problem that circles my mind now is they're about to do something drastic. How is this going to affect things? Can I still even use my powers? For I can even feel like I'm closing my eyes, my consciousness jumps from one point to another, and a slight feeling of relief washes over me. There's nothing to quell the anxiety, though. The colourful walls of the chasm dance by as I stand there in the midst of it all. Winds of shimmering dust fly by at a speed similar to when I first arrived here, only reminded me of just how stressed I truly am. Tigran! I call their name, yelling it out into the tunnel. I get no sign of response. The winds only pick up slightly, and the echoing voices of the past flow by, sending chills through my body. I start to feel more and more aggravated. The situation settles in. You can hear me. Please come back. You don't need to take such drastic measures. Even if you do, we can talk about it more here, right? Again, no response. The anger swells more and more inside of me. Weeks of frustration have finally reached their boiling point. You stupid god! Why can't you just tell me these things? Between your botched plan to farm our world and yet the gods desire to watch it burn, how do you have to hear with everyone's shit? The wind picks up, but I stand firmly in place. If you want me to shoulder everyone's burdens, including yours, then just tell me. I turn around, looking up and down the tunnel, trying to see if I can get any reaction from anyone. Nothing happens. Damn it all! I lean forward in my seated position, lowering my head down between my legs. I'm still able to use my power, right? Ty never said anything about me losing that. Even so, I don't think I have enough stamina. Any sense of a weight being lifted off my shoulders is now gone, as a numbing feeling of dread creeps down my neck. I squint my eyes, trying to concentrate on the vision in my mind. That night. I need to know who did it. Just a hint, any hint that can give me a chance. Damn it. The vision comes across even messier this time, only granting me a slight visual. Everything's falling apart before my eyes. Each time I try to have a vision, it's like looking into a mirror before someone shatters it. Every time I get so much as a glimpse, the vision collapses and I'm thrown back into reality. Controlling what I want has gotten easier, but seeing has become more and more difficult each day that passes. I lay down on the bed, trying to relax my body on the cold stone surface. A wave of exhaustion begins to overwhelm me. Laying there, staring at the ceiling, I contemplate falling asleep. Someone will be down here sometime today to drag me out of this cell. I don't know when though, so I might as well try to rest. I'm going to need as much energy as possible. The past few days, all I've been doing is dwelling on the past. Reaching out for a vision so close, yet so far away at the same time. For the first time in several days, I actually feel tired. Is it because Tigran's gone? No, I don't think that's the reason. They're not responsible for my stupid decisions. My strategy failed me. That's all there is to it. I haven't done anything. I haven't changed a bit. All the power I have and all I can do is sit idly by. My eyes jolt open as the sound of metal clanking together brings me out of my sleep. I sit up and look over the door where I see a turnkey trying to open it. A feeling of dread washes over me. How long was I asleep for? I glance out the window to see the sun is higher in the sky. It's most likely close to noon at this point. I'd only been asleep for a short while. The cold air from the window wafts onto my body, and when I was able to sleep at all. I get up and move over to the other side of the cell. There's two turnkeys standing by the door. One of them was wrestling with the lock on the door, the other stands next to him, holding some cloth, shoes, and a bucket with hot steam rising from the top. The first one is muttering some swears under his breath, while the other stands there silently, looking down on the ground. Behind them stands a castle guard. He's a lynx, clad in basic armour with a large green cloth draped around his neck and shoulders. The turnkey unlocks the door and it swings open, banging into the wall behind it. I don't really know what to do, so I just stand there, backed against the wall, looking at them. I'm still barely clothed, only wearing the pants from the ball. They're scuffed and stained with mud, looking more like a rusty brown compared to the midnight black they were on that night. I look closer, realise the bundle of cloth the turnkey is carrying looks like a pair of neatly folded clothes. Knowing they're going to give me some clothes is a bit of a good feeling. I hate to be tossed before the thrones a dirty man in rags. Better be a dirty man in clean clothes. However, the bucket of water might be to clean myself. They step into the cell, the first turnkey stepping off the side while the second one walks in, setting the clothes down. "Stand still." He says this in a raspy voice, which travels out from under his hood like a growl in a bear cave. First, I don't understand what they intend. Then I watch as the silent turnkey brings back the bucket and begins to heave it forward. "Oh, wait!" I barely have any time to protest, let alone dodge as the hot water leaks through the air onto me. The initial shock is horrific as the heat surges over my body. Some of it gets in my mouth and it tastes salty. I throw myself back a bit, backing against the wall and blinking my eyes. "Why would you do that?" Neither of them respond. For a few seconds the feeling of pain goes away, and soon I'm just standing there, dripping from head to toe with warm water. I'm far from being warm myself, though. The cold breeze rushes in through the window, blowing onto my skin and sending goosebumps all over my exposed arms. "Turn around." I look up and the other turnkey's been handed a second bucket by the guard. Turn around." Reluctantly turning around, my body feels stiff and I tilt my head downwards, clenching the muscles in my neck, bracing for the impact of hot water on my back. It only takes a moment for the stinging wave of water to be thrown on me, trickling down my back and soaking my pants. A muddy puddle has formed on the ground around my feet. I don't really feel clean. The guard nods to the silent turnkey and they walk forward, picking up the clothes and setting them on the bed. "Those will be sitting on the bed for you once you're ready." "Okay." The turnkey walks up to me and pulls a rough-looking sponge from the bucket. Before I can question, I press into my side, begin to sloppily scrub away at my skin. "What? What are you doing? Stop." They pull back and look at the guard. He frowns and looks at me. "Need to clean before you present yourself to the king." As the guard says it, the turnkey picks up where they left off and continues to scrub. "This is ridiculous. I'm not a pig being prepared for slaughter." I grab the sponge from their paw rather easily and throw it into the bucket. A small bit of water left in the bucket flies into the air, splashing on the ground in front of the guard's shoes. Perfectly capable of washing myself. I say this while glaring at him. He steps forward and reaches into the bucket, pulling the sponge from the bottom. Rising back up, he shoves it into my chest with a bit of force, gritting his teeth as I'm backed into the corner. "We're going to do their job and you're going to be quiet. Then when they're done, we're going to escort you to the trial." They push harder on my chest, the metal on their gloves digging into my skin. "I could bring you there now, naked and shivering like the pathetic worm you—" His words escape him as his attention is drawn to the hallway. "Ah." The rhythmic sound of steel clanking together travels up the hall, getting closer with each thud. Bjorn? Imagine the large bear trudging his way down the hall. I can feel my heart beating in my chest as the guard's fist presses me against the wall. When he was standing in the doorway, I didn't realise how big he was. Lately I've only been visited by people either around my height or much smaller than me. I grab his arm and push him off me with what little strength I have. "Get off!" I actually managed to make them stumble back, their full attention on the hallway. That snaps them out of it, however, as they push me harder into the wall, letting out a snarl. The person walking down the damp corridor now sounds like they're just a few cells down. Can't be Bjorn. Whoever it is, their footsteps are swift and quick. They actually seem to pick up in pace too. Maybe they'll stop this. My legs are shaking a bit as I stand there, pushed against the gritty wall of the cell. The two turnkeys stand off the sides of us, their paws clasped and their heads drooping. Repetitive noise of feet on dirty ground comes to a stop in the doorway. "Lyle!" He slides through the entrance, his tail stiff and shoulders high. He's wearing a helmet, shaped to the head of a wolf with a large plume coming out of the top. I recall seeing it sitting on an armour rack in his room. Even in my dreams it would rest there, collecting dust. Out! The two turnkeys walked to the door, one of them handing the ring of keys to Lyre. I was just... Leave, now! I've slid down the wall and fallen into a seated position, the legs shaking slightly. Seeing him and hearing his voice is the biggest relief I've had in weeks. The castle guard walks to the doorway and stops next to Lyre. You're not even allowed down here, if I remember correctly. I can't read the expression on his face through the helmet, but Lyre only turns his head slightly, looking down the links. The person who made the arrest, it's my duty to bring them to trial. If you have a problem with that, bring it up with your commander. I'm sure he'd love for you to waste his time with such questions. The guard clenches his fist and scoffs. You'll be needing these then. The guard drops a pair of shackles into Lyle's paw. Lyre leans in, his voice brought down to a quiet tone. Oh, and if I ever catch you pushing around prisoners again, I'll make sure your commander has you shoveling shit in the stables for weeks. Yeah, understood. After that, the guard walks off in a huff. Lyre turns his head away from the door and looks down at me. As I hear the guard's footsteps trail off into the distance, I find it hard to get any words out of my mouth. For a few moments we both just stay in place, motionless. The only thing moving is Lyle's tail, as it twitches from side to side. I apologise for the smell. What's with the helmet? Suddenly he launches himself toward me, throwing the shackles to the side and falling to his knees. He takes me in his arms, wrapping them around me tightly. His body gives off a comforting warmth, and there's even a faint smell of coconut. I just sit there and let him hug me, my body in shock. After a few seconds I hug him back, his fur rubbing against my face. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I can feel him shaking slightly and even hear him sniffle. What are you apologising for? You better not be apologising on behalf of that moody king. The shaking continues, but he quickly starts to laugh. Oh, I've missed you, Ifor. It's only been a couple of weeks, but it feels like ages. All I could do every day was wonder how you're getting by. You were constantly on my mind. He pulls back, planting his paws on my shoulders and looking down at me through his helmet. I can sort of see his eyes behind the visor, big and concerned. I look down, several emotions overwhelm me all at once. Embarrassment, happiness, sadness. I can tell that I'm blushing without even looking in the mirror. My face feels hot and the rest of my body is chilly. The water from that bucket bath drips from the tips of my hair onto the ground. I look back up at Lyre, he's still letting out nervous chuckles. Well, I like your hair. You look kind of cool with it down like that. Even through his helmet I can tell he's forcing a smile. For I know it, tears begin running down my cheeks. Feels good though. He takes me in his arms again, we both silently sit there hugging. I sob into his chest for what seems like a few minutes. The thing that messes with me the most is the fact I'm just now realising how much I missed him. I see him in my dreams and in some visions, but through it all, most of the time he felt like he was just there. Any emotions I would get were just drowned in other feelings and thoughts. Holding him in my arms helps quell my doubts. Having him here by my side is just pure bliss. After a couple more minutes, I pull away and look up at him. I've missed you so much, Lyre. He lowers his head. I really did never stop thinking about you. Not for a moment. He leans back into his seated position, his tail swishing across the floor like a broom. I raise up my hands and grasp the sides of his helmet. Are they making you wear this for the special occasion? No. All the royal guards have to wear these, actually. Only on certain occasions, though. He wrings his paws nervously and brushes my hand through the fur on his neck. Can you let me take it off? I want to see your handsome face. I begin to lift the helmet. He quickly brings his paws up to my hands to stop them. His paws stay there for a moment. He lets out a sigh. I lower my hands and he removes his helmet. What I see next makes my stomach twist into knots. He has a black eye. It's swollen to the point where he can barely open it. Oh my god. I take his face in my palm and caress it. I'm afraid my dedication to both the sword and the arts has left me middling in both. I gently rub my hand across his face, making sure not to cause him any pain. I start to get angry, knowing that this is all probably because of me. That's nonsense. Everyone says you're a gifted swordsman. What actually happened?
You'll learn all about it during the trial.
Did you get into a fight with someone? Did someone attack you? He lowers his head in shame.
All you need to know is it was Bjorn, and he's in worse shape than I am.
Bjorn attacked you? And you won? He doesn't lift his head, still looking down at his lap.
Oh, not really. I lost the duel.
That doesn't make much sense. I'm confused. Why would Bjorn be in worse shape?
He was out for blood and I didn't want either of us to die, so...
He pauses, the words catching in his throat.
I don't really want to talk about it if that's okay. The fight itself wasn't too important.
I'm about to protest when an all too familiar noise echoes from outside the window. The bells start to toll, the noise bouncing off the walls outside and filling the cell with reverberating noise. I look back up at Lyre and he's staring out of the window too. He seems nervous, almost frozen in place, and I don't blame him. It's finally begun.
I'll tell you all about it later. After we prove your innocence.
He stands up from his seated position and holds out his paw.
It'll be better if you arrive as soon as possible.
I take his paw and he pulls me to my feet. You're right. I look down at my body, filthy and dripping with water, the seat of my pants covered with mud. Picking up the sponge and bucket, I turn to Lyre, who's examining his helmet. It's all right, I just need a few minutes to,
Oh, yeah. I'll be out in the hall if you need me.
Okay. After a few minutes, I manage to get myself relatively clean. The sponge actually does a good job of getting most of the dirt and everything else off my old body. It's not a perfect bath, but it actually feels really good, aside from the shivers running up and down my skin. Also, once all the water is used up, I turned the bucket over and stood on top so I could wash my feet. Or I should have placed it close to the bed with the clothes. Lyle?
Oh, yeah?
He appears in the doorway, his eyes darting up to mine after glancing down on my exposed genitals. Can you hand me those clothes on the bed? I don't want to get my feet dirty walking over there. Without saying anything, he quickly walks over to the stone slab and hands me the cloth for the underwear. What he does is it looks like he's avoiding looking at my body. I take the underwear and start tying it around my waist. You don't have to avert your gaze. Am I really that grubby looking?
No, it's not that you're grubby. I'm just trying to be polite. I love looking at your body.
He stops halfway through his statement and we both stand there in silence for a moment. I know you do. I fasten the underwear on myself and he turns away in his flustered state. Eventually he does look back at me, I even see him softly smile. I get the undergarments fastened around my waist neatly. When I look up at him, he keeps his eyes trained on my torso. After a second, his gaze rises back up to mine. Pants. I point to the simple pair of pants sitting on the bed.
Oh, sorry.
He grabs a pair of trousers and hands them to me. I slip into them pretty fast and then he hands me the shirt. I put that on pretty quickly too. The sleeves are short and it feels a bit tight. Lyle tosses me a pair of socks and I slip them onto my feet, leaning against him for support. I step off the bucket into the old pair of shoes. They don't fit me too well, a bit too big actually. I can walk in them though, and even so, I don't think I'll be doing too much walking anyways.
What about your jacket?
I look behind him at the jacket he's nodding towards. The one I wore that night, damp and hanging from the bars of the cell door. Will the throne room be cold?
Oh, not really.
I should be fine then. I walked past him, pat him on the back in a sarcastic manner. Stopping in the doorway, I turned around to look at him. He's standing in the centre of the cell, helmet in one hand and shackles in the other. I looked down at them, and realised that for a moment I had forgotten about everything. Only for a moment. He locks eyes with me and then looks around the cell once more. Lyre. He stares at the bed, the cold slab of stone with one corner draped in a ratty blanket. The other corner draped with my wet clothes from earlier. After a few seconds he walks up to me and holds up the shackles.
I hate to do this, but...
It's okay, just do it. He pauses for a moment before nervously clasping them around my wrists. They clink slightly as his paws lock them in place.
I'm going to make whoever killed Raynar pay for what they've done.
You mean we, right? He looks into my eyes, a sad smile gracing his lips.
Oh, of course.
Takes my hands in his paws and rubs his thumbs over my palms. For some reason I can tell that he wants to cry. It's just a feeling I get from his paws. Lyre? He squeezes my hand slightly and looks up.
Yes?
Things go well. There's something I'd like to talk with you about.
Oh, of course.
Even if everything goes horribly and I get sentenced to life in the dungeons, or worse, I want you to visit me here so I can talk with you. Promise me you will. Without hesitation, he closes my hands together in between his paws and clasps them tightly. The chains linking my arms together rattle as he does this.
Oh, I promise.
Once again the bells outside begin to ring. Lyre leads me to the doorway and turns around.
You go on ahead while I lock the cell door.
Okay. I hesitantly take a couple of steps forward for walking down the long tunnel. As I walk, the feeling of comfort I had with Lyre starts to fade away. Then I remember why I'm here and what's going to happen. Amazingly, being around Lyre made the emotional part of my brain forget about all of it. Now it all comes crashing down upon me like a roof collapsing. My heart feels like it fell from my chest and hit the floor. I try to pick myself up mentally and continue to walk forward. That's all I can really do at this point. I just have to try and get through this. I try to take my mind off of it by looking around. I actually got to see most of the hall leading to my cell. I pass the first two cells and take a peek inside of them. They both look similar to each other. They're definitely different compared to the one I was put in. Each have a window with bars on it, and both cells are very small. At least half the size of my own. There's also no bed or anything else for that matter. Each cell is completely empty aside from the shackles hanging from the brick wall. I hear Lyle's footsteps approaching from behind me.
I really did put you in a good cell, you know.
You shouldn't have to put me in a cell at all.
Oh, me too.
We continue walking, his helmet underneath his arm as if their arm is draped over my back, his paw rubbing my shoulder. The chains hanging from my wrist clink together lightly with each step as we make our way up the stairs. How many dungeons are there?
Most people only know about the first two levels. You are placed on the first level. The series of cells were built as part of the castle's foundation.
That's why each of them has a window.
Yes. Well, some of them do.
We're now in the main part of the castle, and it's honestly a breath of fresh air. We've passed a few people going about their business. They don't pay us any mind aside from the few that stare at us as we pass.
When the castle was being built, they were actually being used as rooms for the workers. Although they weren't locked in them like you were. They were basically used like barracks. Whether plans them to be the dungeons have been decided in the initial schematics.
We come across a fork in the hallway. Instead of going down the corridor that leads to the throne room, we turn left. The voice of the people ahead start to fade away as we pace down the other hall. Isn't the throne room that way?
Oh, you won't be going through the main entrance.
Oh, that's actually a relief. Prefer not to be sneered at walking up the aisle. Anyways, what about the second level?
The second level is meant for a more permanent stay. It's underneath the castle's foundation, embedded deep within the cliffside. The heat from the hot springs can really be felt down there, and you never see the light of day. You don't want to be put down there, not as I do anything in my power to stop that from happening. It's horrible down there.
Hearing all of this causes goosebumps to form on my arms.
Thankfully, they don't get used often.
Are there more levels? He doesn't answer right away, not until we turn down a very narrow hall. There's 2 castle guards standing by a door at the end of the hall. They're both cats, out of earshot and talking with each other.
There's one more level, but it hasn't been used in ages. And it definitely won't be used for you.
We get close to the end of the hall, and he stops and takes his arm off my shoulders, turning to me.
Okay, the trial will be starting soon, so I just want to go over everything with you. I'm sure you've been thinking about it as long as you've been in the cells, so you're more than prepared.
Somewhat.
I think we should still go over some of it.
Okay.
There'll be a jury consisting of high nobility. You may recognize some of them.
From that dreaded party.
Hey, you got to dance with Captain Niall Reed of the Royal Guard. Was it really all bad?
I shoot a look at him in a deadpan manner.
I'm only kidding.
I know. Trust me, I wish I could block out all the bad stuff from that night.
Oh, me too. Anyways, there's going to be 7 people on this jury, including Elizabeth. After everything is said and done, they'll give their verdicts. Once all the votes have been read, the king will give his verdict, and his word is final. Very rare does it differ from what the jury believes, though.
If they all voted me innocent, I doubt Adris would agree.
Oh, you never know.
We'll just have to see.
Honestly, I don't know what he'll decide.
What else do you know for sure? He thinks for a moment, fiddling with the plume on his helmet.
Each person even remotely involved in what happened will testify. They'll either testify against you or for you. Or they may even do both, depending on the information they give.
That's very different from what's done in Erin.
I'll be going first since I made the arrest. Also, nothing in our favour is the fact that Bjorn is currently unable to testify.
He reaches around and grips the handle of his sword confidently.
And Adris isn't too keen on delaying the trial.
Who will testify in his place?
Instead, Finn will testify in place of him, detailing the events and how he saw them. Finn is a good man, he'll most definitely tell the truth. I'll also have your account of what happened along with mine. As long as there's no contradictions, the jury will accept it.
That could either be good or bad with me, depending on what Finn saw.
Yes. Like usual, everything seems a bit unfortunate.
Yes, that seems to be an ongoing theme. Is there anything else you might be able to tell me?
Oh, that's all I really know. I'm also not sure what the punishment will be.
Yeah, I can think of a few things. He lets out a sigh, his breath tremulously exiting his lungs.
No.
Well, you know more than I do what happens to people guilty of such crimes.
No, I won't let it happen.
I reach up and take his face in my hands. Yes, you will.
No, I'll never.
No, listen to me. You're going to do everything in your power to prove my innocence, and I'll do the same. If it's all for naught, I'm thrown in a cell, will continue to fight the odds. But if the worst happens, you're to do nothing. I can't stand the thought of roping you to a punishment you don't deserve.
You don't deserve it either.
I can feel my eyes beginning to water. That's not the point. I say this in a hushed whisper. Testifying for me is already putting you in a dangerous spot. I don't want you dying on my behalf. Tears begin to form the corners of his eyes as he looks down the ground. His breathing is heavy and his tail is tucked between his legs. Let's contemplate the horrible scenario where I'm sentenced to death. You're going to do nothing to stop it from happening. My eyes are welling with tears and my heart is racing. I can feel a headache coming on. Afterwards you will mourn and weep, as I know you will, because you're good and kind. And when the mourning is done, you will move on. You'll find someone else who will love and treasure you as I do. And I know you're trying to make things work because that's what you've done since the moment I met you.
You ask me to be reasonable, or it won't make things better. I'll be loyal to you until the day I die.
Would that be the same loyalty as what you've shown his kingdom? Your loyalty to Lyre has tied you down and made you its prisoner. You're a knight, a servant. I'll not have you make the same pledge to me. His breathing relaxes. I can tell he's thinking of a way to reply. The bells also begin to ring again.
I made that pledge when King Raynar asked of it of me. I made that promise.
He hangs his head low, his muzzle almost buried in the fluff of his neck. Lyle, I love you. Most of my life I'd never known for sure what love was, but now that it's ripped into my soul, I can feel it. And I know that you love me too. As you told me before, I've made a great impact on your life, but if the worst should happen, don't let your loyalty to me chain you down as well.
Don't.
Because if you're loyal to me, you'll only be joining me in my grave.
Please don't.
If you love me, you'll let me go.
Ifor. If it means tarnishing my own name more than I already have, I will stop at nothing to prove your innocence.
I can see the pain in his eyes. No, this is a hard topic for him, but it needed to be brought up. I know you will. It's in your nature. He takes his arm to his face and wipes the tears from his eyes. After he does that, he bends down and wipes the tears from my eyes with his paws. The rough pads gently brush against my eyelids, and I cradle my face in his paw, its warmth comforting. We stand there for a few minutes, the air heavy with the weight of all that's happened. One of the castle guards approaches us, their green cloaks swishing with their tail. The other guard walks to the door to the other side. Commotion can be heard as he slips through.
Sir Reed.
Lyle takes me from his embrace and turns to them.
Yes.
They're ready for the accused to be brought out soon. He glances at me with his cat-like eyes. Lately everyone either avoids looking at me or can't get their eyes off of me. He turns to me, confident look covering his obvious worry.
Are you ready?
Does it matter? He lets out a sigh.
I guess not.
Lyle takes my hand. We walk to the door at the end of the hall. When the door opens, walk through and you should find your place before the throne. We make it to the door and stand in front of it. Lyle leans against the wall, rests the side of his head up against one of the bricks. I stand across from the door, staring through the crack in the door. I can hear the faintest noise of chatter coming from the other side. My skin is crawling and it begins to itch. I start to feel hot. The taste of my own spit begins to become more noticeable. Reaching behind my head, the chains ringing together and resting on my chest, I pull my hair out of my face. Lyle continues to rest against the wall, silent and calm. He's most likely thinking, so I decide to leave him to it. Don't want to disturb his thoughts at a time like this. I should be concentrating as well. I close my eyes and try once again to trigger a vision of that night. Nothing happens. I open them again and my body shivers slightly. For some reason, I felt as if several people were all watching me. There was something else, though. A comforting hand on my shoulder. The feeling goes away and I wonder if I imagined it. With the way things have been going lately, I doubt it. I brush it off and instead try to have a different vision. Something easier, just to make sure I didn't lose the ability altogether. That familiar experience of losing all the feeling around me only for it to come back overtakes me once again. My feet as they hit the ground very hard, sending the shock through my body. The ground, however, is soft. Whoever this is, they're looking down on the ground, leaning against something hard. It's most likely a tree. I can see the spots of light being cast between the leaves and onto the ground beneath their feet. Those are Lyle's feet. I know for sure that they're his. Their fur is the same colour and everything. As I realise this, I start to notice everything else. The fluff around his neck and the swaying tail above his lower back. In a few seconds of the vision, I hear a soft voice from behind me. Do you mean it?
Well, of course.
You promise?
Ifor,
Lyle's slightly shaking me by the shoulders as I come out of the vision. He has his helmet on, his ears standing tall.
Come on, we have to go.
I look ahead and see the door's been opened, the castle guard standing on the other side. He takes my hand and leads me through the door, the light from the throne room blinding at first. We exit the doorway and find ourselves in the back of the hall near the windows. I'm overwhelmed by the amount of people in the hall. We're all backed up against the large windows and pillars, standing in section crowds. I've actually seen this many people in the throne room before. They all chat amongst themselves, their voices bounce off the walls, forming a cacophony of nonsense. So I'm starting to get used to the noise and the presence of everyone in the room. They very suddenly quiet down. Just like that, everyone's eyes are on me. It's a horrible feeling. I'm reminded of that night once again. Every person in the ballroom standing around and staring at Lyre and I. It's happening again. I even start to feel the anger that took over during that awful moment where I tried to suppress it. Lyre lets go of my hand, instead holds on to the chains of the shackles, gently leading me to the centre of the throne room. I try to stare at the ground as we pass everyone, head down, in order to avoid drawing any more attention. Can't help but peek around out of the corners of my eyes. The left side of the throne room is lined with some chairs. There are 9 chairs in total, only 7 people are seated in the row. I recognise a few of them from the solstice. 2 owls, tall and grey, their faces judgmental and stern. The male owl is clad in crimson fabrics, and the female one wears a teal dress. I also recognise the vixen sitting next to them, her seafoam green dress embroidered with flowers and vines. Her smile from that night is gone, replaced with a neutral expression. There are some new faces, though. At least, people I've never noticed before. One of them that catches my eye is a large bear. He looks to be almost as big as Bjorn. So big that his chair has considerable space between the chairs on either side of him to give the people sitting in those chairs room to sit. Not only is he as big as Bjorn, but he looks like him too, aside from the fact that his fur is black. On his left sits an elk. His antlers branch out, taking up a wide amount of space above his head. From the prongs of his antlers hang 4 metallic leaves, each one a different colour. He looks to be very aged, but sits calm and steady, like an old tree. Next to him is what looks like a stoat. His clothes are flashy and green, honeyed golden ribbons draping down the sleeves and lining his vest. I recognise the crest on his cape, the 4-leaf clover being pierced by an arrow. I saw banners flying on the walls of Brayton's Vale when I passed through them on my way to Lyre. They have a good relation with Erin, if my memory serves me right. Finally, in the very row of chairs close to the throne, I see Liz. She sits in the chair, hands placed in her lap with one leg crossed over the other. Like everyone else, she's the only one not looking at me. She seems to actually be avoiding eye contact altogether. That is, until she looks up and her eyes meet mine. Can't exactly understand the expression on her face and what it means. She's clearly a bit uncomfortable. Maybe it's my appearance, or it's the fact that the day is finally here. Either way, I doubt she's here because she wants to be. Next to those chairs is a small table. I can't tell from here, but it looks like there's some evidence on it. On the other side of the throne room is another cluster of chairs, and a few people are sitting in them. Kadaj is among them, his green clothing shining vibrantly in the light, making him stand out like a sore thumb. It helps because I'd almost forgotten what he looked like. The cat looks at me with a curious and almost concerned expression. Staggering the steps leading up to the throne are 7 royal guards. Finn is among them, his helmet on and facing forward, posture straight and shoulders back. There's 2 empty spots among the guards, which I assume were meant for Bjorn and Lyle. Lyle continues to lead me to the bottom of the steps, making sure not to tug on the shackles. But I'm also helping by keeping up with him. It's dead quiet in the throne room now, aside from our footsteps. I expected to hear people whispering in the crowd, but nobody's uttering a word. I look up at the throne, the large wooden mass basking in the light from the windows. On the left of the throne stands Leaf. I haven't seen him in a long time. He looks the same as he did the last time I saw him. After Lyle and I come to a stop at the bottom of the steps, Leaf notices me looking at him. He looks away, but it doesn't matter as my eyes are drawn to the true centrepiece of the room. There he sits, the crowned king of Lyre. The throne looks small compared to him as he sits perfectly straight in the seat, arms resting on either side. Idris doesn't take his amber eyes off me for a moment. He leans forward in his throne, looking down at me with displeasure. Something like he's looking right through me into my very soul. On his right stands a figure wearing a green cloak. Their robe is priestly and their arms are brought together within their sleeves. I've actually seen them before. They take a few steps down the stairs and stand behind the guards before raising their paws into the air. All-powerful Tigran, we pray that you guide the members of this trial towards the truth. I can't say for certain, but I'm pretty sure I see Idris roll his eyes. Guide our king towards true justice, and may his judgment be swift and true. For he who sits on the throne of Lyre shall be righteous and protect all from the wicked. Even given my situation, I can't but laugh at the idea that Tigran might not even be able to hear this person. Idris sits up and I feel his gaze pierce through me once more. Lord Ifor of Erin. Lyre still stands by my side, looking forward, his paw grasping the change my shackles lightly. Yes? The word comes out a bit raspy, so I clear my throat. He rubs his hand on the arm of his seat before continuing. You have been accused of murdering King Raynar Ossian on the night of the winter solstice. Do you deny it? Yes. Very well. We shall proceed then. As king, I will be judging this trial. The rules are very simple. He leans back in his seat, relaxing his voice. You will speak only when spoken to or when you have been permitted to speak without permission. Do you understand this? Of course. Good. Along with my judgment, there is a jury of lords and ladies from all across Lyre's territory. The hooded figure gestures the nobility sitting off to my left. Lord Oscar Grimdell, Lord of Grimrock. The large bear stands from his seat, bowing to Adrius. The chainmail on his body clinks together every movement he makes. Lord Oliver Oswell, Lord of North Osrin. The first owl stands, bowing to Adrius. As he bows, he extends his wings behind his body, fluttering the cape draped over his shoulders. Along with his sister, Lady Olivia Oswell, Lady of South Osrin. The second one stands with him, forming a curtsy before they both take their seats in unison. Lord John Galen, Lord of Gaelmore, Protector of the Gaelmorian Woods. The Ark stands from his seat, propping himself up on a cane, nodding to Adrius with a stern look. The leaves on his antlers shake as he does this. Lady Tyrell Raynar, Lady of Aenor. The vixen stands from her seat and curtsies, though it's not as elegant as she looks. She sits back down just as the elk steadily manages to place himself back into his own seat. Lord William Braden of Braden's Vale. The small stoat stands from his seat, proudly bowing before jumping back into his chair. The furniture scuffs against the floor as he does this. And lastly, War Minister Elizabeth Renee of Rosewind. Liz leaves her seat and climbs the steps, taking her place on the right of Adrius' throne. As the current king's advisor, she will formally be at his side during his trial. She gives a slight bow in his direction before turning to face the front. The hooded figure takes his time walking back down the steps. He takes a seat a few chairs down from Kadaj. Thank you for the introductions. The trial will now begin. On cue, all the royal guards stamp their feet, including Lyle. Sir Lyle Reed. Lyle steps forward and gets on one knee, lowering his head. His tail is tucked between his legs, almost completely limp. Oh, my king. You may remove your helmet. Lyle stands back up and slides a helmet from his head. I can hear a few people make noises of discomfort in the crowds off to the side. Adrius' expression doesn't seem to budge. Do you swear to tell the truth, not only as a citizen of Lyre, but as the captain of the Royal Guard?
I do.
Very well. As the individual who made the arrest of Lord Ifor, you may describe your account of the evening and what happened to the best of your ability.
As you wish.
Lyle moves to the centre, standing in front of me. He beckons the people sitting off to the sides.
Most of you know I was assigned to Lord Ifor on his arrival in the Kingdom of Lyre as his personal guard. This was a decision made by King Raynar himself. In the time I've spent with Lord Ifor, they have shown no intentions of committing treason or murder. They simply did what they were requested to do by the king as a newly appointed financial advisor.
Suddenly the bear on my left speaks up.
Were you given any other specific duties when guarding this lord?
He speaks in a very gruff voice, almost interrupting Lyre.
Nothing other than protecting them and guarding their room at night, along with guiding them around the castle. They're foreign, so King Raynar wished for me to help them understand this place. As I was saying, similar to their overall time spent here, nothing out of the ordinary had happened for most of the night leading up to the murder. Ifor and I attended the ball and decided to leave early.
If my memory serves correctly, Lord Ifor left the party before you, after your dance.
A few of the nobles look at Oliver as he says this. His sister stands up next to him, adding on to the statement.
He left the ballroom alone, slandering us on its way after that shameful display.
I followed him almost immediately after. And I don't appreciate you.
No interruptions to the jury, please.
The twins sit down, one of them waving a dismissive wing in Lyle's direction.
You may continue, Lyle.
I went with Lord Ifor at the ball and we spent some time together before he decided to leave. After I found Ifor, I escorted him back to my room, as it was closest where I'd found him and he'd caught a cold. I knew that my quarters had a fireplace that had already been lit. We stayed there for some time, not intending to return to the party.
Then what happened?
After a while, a servant came to my quarters saying that King Raynar had sent him to retrieve Ifor. The king had business that he wished to discuss with Lord Ifor. Ifor left with the servant and I stayed behind, knowing he would need a guard in Raynar's chambers.
He clears his throat and he continues.
After some time I went to check on Lord Ifor. There were no guards posted at the entrance to the staircase. I found that a bit odd, so I ran up the stairs. When I reached the top, I found Ifor lying on the ground while Bjorn stood over them, sword drawn and attacking him. I ordered Bjorn to lay down his sword and then found out that Raynar had been killed. Sir Finn had been sent to alert the castle. I didn't think it was Ifor who'd done it, not for a second. Even so, I arrested them and locked them in a cell.
He steps back and Adris nods his head.
Very good. Describe the scene of the crime, please.
Lyle steps forward and continues.
Well, Raynar's chambers are at the top of the highest tower, with a spiral staircase leading up to it. The entrance is usually guarded by 2 members of the Royal Guard while he's there. After examining the room, we found blood on the curtains and drapes. Other than that, there wasn't too much blood anywhere else. There's also no moisture or snow on the carpet near the window, so it's not likely it was ever opened. The body was lying on the floor behind the bed.
Liz takes a piece of parchment and passes it around to the nobles. Each of them looks at it and grimaces.
The dagger used in the crime was found to the left of the body. There were clear signs of a struggle, separate from the sword marks left in the floor from Bjorn's bastard sword. Raynar had clearly been caught off guard. There were rips in the drapes by the window, indicating his antlers had torn through them during the struggle. We even found gold flakes from one of his antlers lining the tears.
He pauses, taking a deep breath before continuing. He's doing a really good job so far describing the event. He's not lying about anything. I wouldn't want him to do that. And he's still leaving out some truth.
Several canine guards, along with myself, picked up scents from the room. 4 people had been in the room around the time of the murder. Sir Bjorn, Lord Kataj, King Raynar, of course, and Lord Ifor.
There's chatter among the crowd, but Adris raises his hand to silence them.
Is that all you have to present?
For now.
Adris isn't too happy with this response, but continues anyway.
You may join your guards.
Lyle goes up the steps, putting his helmet back on as he takes his place in the centre of the guards. He looks down at me for a moment, giving a barely noticeable nod in my direction. Elif? Yes, Your Majesty. Please give your reports on the body. Of course. Leaf steps forward and holds out a piece of parchment, reading off of it. When the body is examined, 2 stab wounds were found in the stomach, along with 1 in the chest. The throat had also been slit across the front. He squints his eyes, holding the parchment closer to his face. His eyes and head were positioned so that he was looking out the window. Clear signs of a struggle were found on the tips of his fingers. I can see Adrius getting a bit uncomfortable in his chair. I actually feel kind of bad and avert my eyes. There were also tear stains on his cheeks, and the body was very clearly fresh. Adrius cuts him off as Leaf becomes lost in his description. Thank you, Leaf. Leaf steps back up to the side of the throne and Liz looks to me. Lord Ivor, you may now present your side of the story. I sit there for a moment, not really knowing how to start. The hall is silent, I can almost hear my own heart beating. Being put on the spot like this is very stressful. I guess I should start with when Lyre and I separated. I clear my throat and begin. Everything happened just as Surid said it did. At least according to his perspective. The servant whose name I'm not aware of came to fetch me early in the night. I told Lyre to stay behind and left for the king's chambers. But he is your guard, is he not? Should he not accompany you everywhere? The servant did not accompany me, saying I should be able to find my way to his chambers quite easily, insinuating I would not need a guide. I was only doing what seemed appropriate. He says nothing, waving his hand, allowing me to continue. As I made my way down the hall, I came across Sir Bjorn and Sir Finn, standing guard at the entrance to the staircase. They let me pass, and I made my way up to the room. When I reached the top, there was an area with a large window on the ceiling. Ahead were the doors, and when I entered, that's when I noticed something was off. The room was dark, and the curtains and drapes lining the ceiling blocked out a lot of the light. I couldn't see Raynar, so I assumed he wasn't there. That's when I noticed the damage. Broken portraits, large tears through the canopy of the bed. I followed the trail of broken objects and found his body. At first I didn't know what I was looking at. The entire scene left me shocked. I didn't know what to do and everything was spinning. What happened next? Well, as most you know, I had been quite ill. I was having constant headaches daily, not to mention the few days I spent comatose. I assumed my mind couldn't handle the sudden shock and I began to suffer from similar pains. I tried to reach the door to warn someone and tell them what had happened. The crowd behind me, I can hear people whispering back and forth. Even the nobles are talking amongst themselves. You'd think they'd want to hear this. That's when Bjorn entered the room. Right on cue, I would say. He started by spouting off a question for Raynar, but he quickly found out something was wrong. Finn was with him at the time. Bjorn told him to stay at the door. He found me collapsed on the ground and immediately rushed to Raynar's body. He assumed I had killed him and attacked. Of course, not before sending Sir Finn away to alert the castle. That way he could have me all to himself. If Vile hadn't arrived in time, he would have killed me on the spot. You didn't mention knocking on the door. Everyone looks up and a few people in the crowd start whispering. I didn't. So, you didn't knock on the door? Neither did Sir Bjorn. People in the crowd begin to murmur. Adrius is not pleased nor convinced, but when is he ever? It seems the rest of your account is similar to Lyle's. Yes. Very good. Sir Finn, please tell us your side of the story, if you will. Finn turns around, taking off his helmet, facing the nobles and Adrius. Bjorn and I were guarding the entrance to King Raynar's chambers that night, as you know. We allowed Lord Ivor to pass a few minutes for our shift change. Bjorn and I went up the stairs to let King Raynar know that we were going to be leaving when Bjorn found what had happened. I was told to alert the castle, and I did so. I was able to quickly find the commander of the castle guard and alert him to the murder. Soon everyone in the castle knew. Is that all? There's one last thing. The reason that Bjorn's scent was found in the room was because he would check on King Raynar every once in a while.
As meat-headed as he is, he's dutiful. Each time he returned to our post, I noticed nothing out of the ordinary.
Anything else?
Adrius almost seems bored. No, that's it.
Finn places his helmet back onto his head and reassumes his position among the guards. Unfortunately, that goes beyond a nice alibi. Moving on, we'll present some unbiased individuals who have had enough interactions with you to be able to judge your character. Starting with Leaf. Leaf walks down the steps and stands in front of the throne. So far, everything seems to be going smoothly, but something feels off. Leaf, please detail your interactions with Lord Ifor. He clears his throat and begins. My lords and ladies, Lord Ifor has been a good friend. In the time he's been here, he's shown nothing but kindness and understanding. He can be a bit odd at times, but no more than the rest of the staff in this castle. I have tended to their wounds and helped him with the head pains experiences frequently. They've been an excellent patient. Over the past few weeks, he seems to have almost blended in with the nobility residing in this castle. He's become closely acquainted with Sir Reed, and they work very well together. Not only that, as the assigned financial advisor, I'm told that he did his job and did it well. He saved the king a lot of money with that party. He pauses, bowing before Adrius. That is all. Leaf steps back, and even though all the things he said were kind, it feels like it wasn't a lot. Guess we haven't gotten to know each other that well outside of him caring for me. Thank you, Leaf. Please, stay. I just have a few questions for you. I feel a tightness in my gut as he says this. Yes, Your Highness. A few days before the solstice, I believe an incident happened. That's because I was not there, but I'm told it was a very theatrical incident. Ifor here came storming to a meeting between my father and the War Minister. He started spouting off things about what happened 10 years ago, things about my mother. The assassins from the canyons also came into question. Am I correct? I want to speak up and tell him what really happened. A strong urge to do it. I think the best thing to do right now is let Leaf talk. Oh, yes. Lord Ifor has been suffering from terrible nightmares lately. He merely believed that he had some sort of premonition. I hear a few people chuckle in the crowd behind me. Wish I could turn around and yell at them to shut it. What does Leaf think he's doing? He had awoken frightened and confused, demanding an immediate audience with your father. Before things could go any further, Lord Ifor collapsed and fell into a bit of an unconscious state, though I assured your father that I was just letting him rest. Your father even told me himself it might have been brought on from a story he told Lord Ifor the day before. He even admitted to me that he regretted being so open about something, knowing that it had troubled Ifor. Actually, he might just be saving my ass. Still, I so badly want to tell them. And yet he wasn't open. In fact, father ever was too detailed when it came to talking about mother. And yet Ifor here knew many details. This is definitely going downhill. I want to tell everyone about Tiger and what's been happening to me. I hold myself back. So I have to trust the Tiger is handling things wherever they are. Though things aren't looking too good, and the more time that passes, the more I yearn for a sign from him. It is a bit amusing that Lord Ifor was so interested in Elena's death. The vixen cuts in, talking in a very small voice. I was very close with her, and even I am not privy to most of what happened. In fact, Raynar rarely spoke of such things, and when he did, it wasn't much. I fail to see how this has anything to do with what I've been accused of. Quiet. I'm afraid you don't get to decide what's relevant. Remember, speak only when spoken to. I mentally berate myself for not holding my tongue. Still, this is a mock trial if I've ever seen one. I thank you, Leaf, for being so cooperative. I now wish to hear from Mr. Elizabeth. Leaf walks back up the steps to the side of Adrius' throne, and Liz takes his place. You may begin, Minister. At first she doesn't say anything. She's most likely thinking about what to say and how to say it, which I honestly appreciate, knowing that my life is possibly at stake. Before the throne room can become completely silent, she speaks up. Lord Ifor and I did not have the best first impression. I was actually introduced to them during the incident that Leaf described. It was not a problem at all, really, as I try to be tolerant of things like that.
I can't say I've gotten to know them too well, that would be a lie, but the interactions I've had with them have been for the most part normal. I even had time to chat with them during the solstice ball. With them being from Erin like myself, idle chat came easily. I can't say much about what happened after that. I watched them dance with Sir Reed and then they left. Even outside of this trial, I keep hearing about this dance. Why is it so important? There's a pause in conversation, but Liz answers after a few moments of contemplation. Lord Ifor and Lyre danced together shortly before leaving the party. Certain people have been spreading gossip, but that's none of my concern. As far as I know, it was a dance, nothing more. Interesting. I did not attend, but I've heard the gossip as well. Idris looks down at me, sneering. Thank you for clearing that up. I needed a good source. I'm aware that most people in this courtroom were present during the solstice ball. Lady Oswell? The Lady Owl stands from her seat, her winged hands resting at the centre of her waist. Yes, Your Majesty. Your brother speaks so highly of your good memory. I feel like everyone could use a nice refresher. I don't like where this is going. Not one bit. Very strong feelings about to use another out-of-pocket instance to smear my image. All I can do is sit here and take it. What was it Lord Ifor said before leaving the ballroom? I've been hearing so much about this little outburst lately. If my memory's as good as you say it is. I remember him saying something along the lines of, to all of you shams who smile at me through your teeth only to have your good opinion crushed by something so trivial, enjoy yourselves. God, I really did say that. Her memory's impeccable. She doesn't even have a way to cheat like I do. As was said after the night it turned sour by their display. Her brother butts in. Ray just holds up his hand, silencing the two of them. Thank you for refreshing our memories. I think it was warranted. Idris turns to look at her and she looks at him too. First I'm afraid something might happen, but Idris just quietly responds. Thank you, Minister. I now call forward Lord Kadaj. Liz walks back to the right side of the throne and I look over to see Lord Kadaj rise from his chair. He saunters up the steps, stopping where Liz was just standing. Would you have me do the same as the previous two? Yes. Very well. He turns around and shoots a glance my way. Get a feeling from him I'm not too ecstatic about. Hopefully this isn't too bad. I'll be short and sweet about it. My exchange with Lord Ifor have been very pleasant, yes indeed. I believe that we both share a similar goal. The cooperation of the three kingdoms. I'm sorry, before you continue I have to ask. I'm sure this is on everyone's mind, but why were they able to pick up your scent in my father's room? It's quite simple, really. King Raynar wanted to meet with me, same as he did Lord Ifor. He had informed the both of us of these meetings during the party, if I remember correctly. What was this meeting about? He only meant to officially appoint me Minister of Foreign Relations, and nothing more. We actually left the dance together. He was very eager to break the news. The guards followed us to the entrance and stood outside. Raynar had no issue climbing the steps, even considering how tipsy he was. The meeting was quite short. We mainly just needed a quiet place to discuss things. After that, I left. I wonder if I was going to be appointed as something more than the financial advisor. I'm not able to gauge whether Lord Ifor committed this crime or not. My impression of them is that they're a good person. If that is all.
King Idris.
Lyle turns around from his position among the guards, taking off his helmet and facing Adrius.
Yes, Sir Reed.
I wish to bring a crucial piece of evidence to everyone's attention.
Adrius raises an eyebrow and everyone else in the room also seems gripped with curiosity.
If you'll help with this case, I see no reason why you shouldn't.
Lyle walks over the table with evidence, carefully picks up the dagger that the killer used. When he returns, he holds it out to Kadaj. Seeing the dagger makes my insides turn a bit. Kadaj is looking at Lyle, confused about what's going on. I also don't really understand why Lyle will bring up the dagger now all of a sudden.
The entire room is filled with hushed whispers. Through it all I spot Adrius staring at me. He's probably trying to see what reaction I have to the blade.
Look at that. Could you tell me if there are any qualities you notice about this dagger? Anything you might be able to point out?
Kadaj gently takes the dagger from him, holding it up to his gaze by the pommel and studying it for a moment. Lyle doesn't take his eyes off Kadaj for a second while he does this. Oh, it's a simple dagger. I most commonly use the thrusting weapons, but this one is interested in the design of the blade, almost like a cuirass.
So, you're familiar with daggers like this?
Oh yes, I have daggers similar to it. I do not know why you ask this. He hands a dagger back to Lyle, holding it by the blade.
For I've been determined by a castle blacksmith, this dagger is ordinary, could be purchased in Erin or Lyre, correct?
This speaks out from the side of Adrius' throne. Yes, that was determined some time ago.
Without a second opinion. I recently consulted a good friend of mine, a blacksmith with experience trading with all of the kingdoms. Eden of Grimrock.
I look to my left and see Lord Grimdale stir in his seat. You took vital evidence from one of the village blacksmiths?
Yes. It's one of the reasons Bjorn attacked me, as unwarranted as it was.
I didn't hear of you getting permission to do such a thing.
No, I did not. I accept full responsibility for my actions and any punishment that follows.
Lyle did all of that? He's really sticking his neck out for me. Your punishment will be decided later. You look in your face, I say you already got your punishment. As unwarranted as it was. Continue.
Lyle turns and looks down at me before continuing. Eren said that assuming this dagger will be forged and brought in a place like Lyre Erin is a very common mistake. The origin of this dagger, however, is Driz.
Surprisingly, the crowd behind us is silent. Listen to what he has to say.
Typically paired with thrusting swords, this dagger can also be used by itself in grappling.
Kadaj lets out a scoff, but Lyle ignores him.
Thrusting swords were invented in Lyre, became exceedingly popular in northern Erin. Oh, that's not rule out the fact that Ronald dagger could come from Driz. That is the case with this dagger.
How can you tell? It looks very plain to me.
The guard and pommel of this dagger is made of arenamite. It is not gold.
The crowd breaks the silence and begins to spread whispers throughout the room. They sure are getting their entertainment.
Arenamite, for those who don't know, is mined in the south. It is a similar quality to gold, but equally rare. And hard to distinguish.
He draws his sword from the sheath on his back and holds it out to the crowd.
Just as rare as Vekrite.
Adrius leans back in his throne, his eyes trained on the blade, his expression the same as it's been for the past few minutes. Lyle holds up the dagger.
This blade is from Driz, and it's unlikely that Lord Ifor would have come into possession of it. Only someone who is the highest class of noble would own something of this quality. Lord Kadaj, do you fence?
What exactly are you implying? He's implying nothing. Adrius leans forward on his throne, his eyes finally leaving the dagger and falling on Kadaj. However, what do you have to say about this, Lord Kadaj? Kadaj pokes his finger into Lyle's chest, his claw clinking against the metal. Yes, I fence. I participated in many duels back in Driz. However, if the Rondel dagger is a rapier's best friend, then the Parian dagger is its wife. It is known that I much prefer those two weapons together. He lets out a scoff. You honestly accuse me of using such a civilian tactic. Kadaj doesn't even care that Lyle just accused him. He only seems to care about his reputation and his choice of weapon. The crowd seems to find this funny. There's an uproar of laughter and even a few of the nobles are giggling behind their hands. Lyle stands there, shocked, quickly regains his composure.
The Skilla didn't use this dagger with a sword. They only used the dagger by itself.
Lyle, enough. The clothes on my back are from Driz. The plates we eat off are from Erin. Even his dagger is from Driz doesn't change anything.
Well, I think it changes everything. Ifor is not wealthy enough to purchase a foreign treasure like this from the Iranian market, let alone go into Driz and get it himself.
Why'd you say that?
Until recently, they've never been outside of their own kingdom. As far as I know, they've only recently become a noble.
That's the part I find most odd in all of this. There's too many questions I have about his origin that simply go unanswered.
Well, that's not the point. Send for Ed and he'll explain it better than I ever could.
I'd rather hear it from the person who sold this knife, but I'm afraid that's just not possible. Lyle, I humoured your request out of fairness, but this is ridiculous.
Fairness?
My voice sends an echo towards the throne, bouncing off the wall behind it. Three standing before me turn and look down, having almost forgotten I was there. You speak of fairness, yet the entire trial is botched. Hey, be quiet. I grow tired of this mockery. Shut up. I did not kill your father, but if it would put a smile on your face, kill me now and be done with it. Stop talking. I'll participate in this charade no longer. Silence! Adrius yells this, his words bouncing off the walls, the entire audience silent as the grave. I was looking down at me, shocked and nervous. In dons a face of disappointment. Kadaj was shocked at first, but now seems to be studying the scene as it plays out. Both of you, return to your places. Kadaj begins to walk over, returning to his seat. Lyle stands there for a moment before reluctantly taking his position among the guards. Before Kadaj can return to his seat, I call out to him. You once asked me where my allegiances lie. Adrius jolts his head in my direction, but says nothing to stop me. Where do yours lie? Kadaj stops walking, standing in place. His tail swishes from side to side before turning around to look at me. With Tigran, Ifor. As he takes his seat, Adrius begins talking as if nothing had happened. It's one more individual I'd like to question before anyone gives their verdict. Who else could he possibly bring up? If I recall, that's everyone I interacted with that night. I call upon the servant. The one who tended Lord Ifor the night of the solstice. What? What could he possibly contribute to this? The servant stands up from the chair and begins to make their way over. I hadn't noticed him until now as he's sitting towards the back. But I noticed him when I entered the room if my mind wasn't already overwhelmed by everything else. At this point I'm sure Adrius already won. Why do you even need to go any further? Especially pulling a card like this. It makes no sense. Before I can come up with a conclusion myself, I look over at Lyle. Instead of facing forward like the rest of the guards, he turns his head in my direction. Can't really see his face behind his helmet, but I get the feeling he knows what Adrius is up to. The Badger walks over the side of the hall and takes their place in front of Adrius at the bottom of the second row of steps. They turn around to look at me, their expression neutral. Can't shake the feeling that something is wrong. Please state your name.
It's Gerhard, Your Highness.
Could you please describe the events of the night and what happened? Please be sure to not leave out any details. Adrius, this man was never questioned. What are you... Adrius turns to her, raising his hand. Please, continue. The servant bows low, swaying their arms out behind their back. Of course, Your Highness. I have been when the servants tended Lord Ifor for a while now. Of course, most of the time he doesn't really feel that way. You see, Lord Ifor accepts the help of servants, leaving most of his tasks up to himself. Of course, it's not something I'm unfamiliar with. Your father was the same way. He glances back at me, Adrius cuts in. Don't look at him, just tell us what you know. Gerhard lowers his head and continues. I was asked to retrieve Lord Ifor for his meeting with King Raynar. When he'd already left the ball, I went searching from his quarters, but our lord was not there. Assumed he'd already known about the meeting. I guess he'd already left for it. That was until I remembered his close relationship with Sarit. I figured I'd go and check the good knight's quarters, see if he knew where Lord Ifor had gone.
Adrius.
Adrius shoots a look at Lyle, but Gerhard continues. When I arrived at the door, I heard something I believe I shouldn't have. At the time I didn't really understand what I was hearing, but looking back on it, it all makes sense. Whispers about the king.
What?
That is not true. Quiet. If only I'd figured it out then, but I foolishly brushed it off. It seemed Lord Ifor was only talking to Lyle about the audience he'd have the king soon. The thing I found out was the fact that Lord Ifor was with Sir Lyle in his own chambers. This guard has been known to allow the company Lord Ifor to his own chambers.
He was ill.
Silence, Lyre. I didn't wish to be rude by lingering outside the door for too long, so I knocked on it. Go off and to answer, and I heard whispers from the other side. Once the door opened, however, How should I go about this? Lord Ifor was standing before me with mussed clothing and hair. Sir Lyre, however, was practically naked when I caught a glance of him through the doorway. Several people in the crowd gasped, and a few of the nobles scoffed and groaned at hearing this. The feeling I had in the ballroom was starting to come back. The embarrassment and humiliation. I looked to my left and see Liz with her face in her hand. It was quite a sight. Why is this servant lying about me? Could be they're the killer? No, that doesn't make any sense. Don't tell me they actually...
Disgusting.
I hear a chair scoot across the floor as Kadaj stands from his seat. I fail to see how this has anything to do with the problem at hand. Even if it's true, I see no issue with it. Well, of course you wouldn't. I've heard scandalous stories about you too. Oh, scandalous stories are a little bit too soon, if you ask me. Kadaj sneers at her. Stories? Kate and I are that famous? I'll be sure to let him know. Everyone quiet. The throne room quiets down and Kadaj takes his seat along with the others. Finish your story. Gerhard's shoulders slouch and he continues. I look over at Lyre and he's fuming. I informed Lord Ifor about the meeting and left. I thought nothing of the whispers and plots at the time, but I should have known. I'm so sorry, Your Majesty. Please forgive me. There is nothing to forgive. Thank you for your account. You may return to your seat. Gerhard begins to walk down the steps and off to the side, but Lyre throws off his helmet.
This is ridiculous. He's lying. None of that happened.
You've spoken out of turn too many times. You want to silence yourself before I place your helmet with the muzzle. Do you understand? Lyre opens his mouth to say something, but looks at me and steps back. With this, Gerhard walks back to his chair. Good. The next few weeks I look around the throne room. I glance at the nobles, and most of them are looking at me with a scornful gaze. Liz is the only one who looks concerned. Adris turns to them and speaks. My lords and ladies, it is time for you to cast your verdict. So each of the nobles stands to their chair, Liz being the last to stand. At this point I feel empty. All I can do is glance around the room and hope that things turn for the better. I look over at Leif. His head is hanging low and I can tell he doesn't like where this is going either. We are going to start with you, Mr. Elizabeth. The throne room was dead silent to see a look up at Adris with a pleading face for looking down. I vote that he's innocent. She says it almost like she's asking a question. Hearing those words were a nice bit of validation, but also enough to quell my dread. The next noble, the small stoat, raises his paw slightly and gives his verdict. I vote this young man is innocent. There's clearly something more sinister at play here. I mean no offence toward your late father, Your Majesty, but please consider this a possibility. Another innocent verdict. Adris glares at Lord Braden and makes no move for rebuttal. He has this look on his face like he knows with absolute certainty what the results will be. If he doesn't, I know what his answer will be. I have a feeling I know what the other nobles' verdicts are too. That feeling has poisoned my stomach. I have a feeling it will kill me with the final vote. Guilty. For I even realised that Lady Raynar has raised her paw and cast her vote. He was taken red-handed, is clearly demented in some way. I can even want to deny her claim. Lord Galen bangs his cane on the floor. Innocent. I can only hope that true justice will be delivered. He looks at Adris as he says this, his long beard shaking with each word. It is what your father would have wanted. Another lord who thinks I'm innocent. Guilty.
Guilty.
2 more votes. They were fast too without any explanation. It's even now. Lord Grimdale stands from his chair, the seat scooting back as his large body rises in the air, towering above all.
I vote this boy guilty.
I feel my air leave my lungs as my chest tightens. 3 voted innocent, 4 voted guilty. I fall to my knees and look down on the ground.
No.
I hear Lyre let out a faint groan across the steps, but it sounds muffled. In fact, my ears are ringing and my entire body feels a bit numb.
He didn't do it, you.
I hear Lyre begin to run up the steps, where I see 2 guards rush him down and grab him by the arms. Nobody says anything at first. All I can be heard is armour grinding against armour and Lyle's grunts. Lyle, I will have you removed from this room if I hear another word out of you. Do you understand? He says this in a cold voice. I heard him speak like that. I keep looking down the ground, hoping everyone will just forget about me. Maybe Adrius will just throw me in a cell for a long time. At this point, I wish I could just go back to my cell. I hear footsteps approaching me from ahead, and they sound like hooves. They stop, and a few moments later, Adrius addresses me in another sharp tone. Look at me. It doesn't register at first, but after a few seconds I look up to see him standing over me. Lord Ifor, you have been found guilty of the murder of King Raynar Ossian. It includes treason, regicide, crimes against peace and the sown of discord throughout our great kingdom. And I'm afraid mental agony is not an excuse for such a crime. His words rub deep into my skin, but I can't feel the anger. Everything is still numb. I can't stop thinking about just going back to my cell and curling up into a ball. My head is even starting to hurt again. It feels as if everyone's eyes are on me. Figures I can't even see. As I said before, the 2 of us are very different. This is all just a game to you. If I'm being honest, you're right to believe that. That's how it's portrayed in this cruel world. He looks over at Lyre and then looks at the noble standing on the left, while bringing his gaze back to me. Our profession has always been seen as a game. Some are better at playing it than others. He bends down, his eyes are level with mine, and lowers his voice to a whisper. You've always been my opponent in this little game of ours. Ever since the day you and that cat arrived here. In my opinion, it only makes sense you would arrive at such drastic measures so soon. I'm afraid you've lost. Then the pain in the sides of my head hits me. He stands back up, throwing his cape back behind his shoulder. I don't feel bad about it, though. You did your best. I don't blame you for trying to get away with it. Those who are out of their element often have to live by one's wits.
What?
My eyesight is taken for moments. I feel my body pulled away from reality. Before I can even realise what's happening, I'm thrown to the ground, crashing into a hard object. All I can do is cough and sputter as my body slumps against the wall behind me. Fear, anger, shock, and sadness. These emotions overwhelm me on a scale I'm not even capable of comprehending. Maybe I'm just numb to it. Tears rush down my face and I can taste blood in my mouth. The back of my head carries an immense pain and one of my arms feels limp. My other arm is clasped on my stomach, blood pumping out of the fresh wounds and seeping into my clothes. A thick crimson substance floods out between my fingers, staining the golden brown fur. Standing over me is him. A figure clad in dark leather cloak, brandishing a slender and vicious dagger, both dripping with blood. Through the unbearable pain, I catch a glimpse of their face only for a split second. Raynar coughs up blood and reaches out a hand, the arm shaking and weak. Please. The figure kneels down, swatting the hand away. The hand Raynar was extending to his son. Adrius. He leans in, pushing Raynar's head back by his antlers and drags the knife across his neck. It cuts deep and it feels just as real as last time. The pain is awful and I can feel my grip on reality fading. How did this happen, though? Where is his antlers? I'd already grown them back by that point, right? No, this isn't possible. He wasn't there. He wasn't... As Adrius lets go of Raynar's head, it slumps back into its recent position, and Raynar looks up at him. Adrius looks angry, but scared at the same time. His eyes are wide open. I can't get an accurate read on his expression. It's like he's conflicted or lost. Gritting his teeth and looking back with regret? No. He's just a coward. A weak, spineless coward. It's confusing and the pieces aren't all there. This has to be a sign from Tigran. I know Adrius did it. I know it in my bones. As the life leaves Raynar's body, I can feel all the anger and hate from the past few weeks rushing into my own. When you have nothing left, revenge no longer seems like the worst option. It couldn't be helped. Yelling at the top of my lungs, and without hesitation I pushed myself to my kneeling position, lunging forward at the deer. I hear the impact before I can even feel it in my fist. You bastard! My knuckles smash into the side of his muzzle, spinning his jaw as he's thrown back. I have to throw the punch using both my hands as they're chained together, but it lands just as hard. The chain from the shackles flings out and whips him across the face, slinging blood onto the floor along with the blood that spits out of his mouth. Adrius! Your Majesty! I hear Liz and Leaf yell out along with several nobles, everyone in the crowd letting out shocked gasps of horror. I collapse to the ground, feel like all the energy I had left was spent doing that. His crown flies off his head, landing on the ground near me. Immediately I notice the gem at the top is cracked, bits of it scattered across the floor. I don't have much time to think about what I did and what's going to happen next, though. Adrius stumbles back, dazed and confused before tripping over the step. Adrius! Oh my god! I try to rise in a kneeling position, look up at what made that sound. As I get on one knee, two guards tackle me to the ground, forcing me onto my knees. Even the force of two men pushing me down, I still managed to glimpse what I'd done. Adrius is propping himself up against the stairs, eyes full of shock. Blood rushes down the side of his head from where his antlers snapped off, dripping onto his clothes. There's a large cut on the bridge of his snout and his nose is bleeding. He must have hit his head on the steps and broken the antler. You! Leaf tries to rush to his side, but Adrius pushes him away. Get away from me! He looks at me, his eyes filled with rage. I've never seen them like this. I've never seen him like this. Arrest him! Arrest him now! Take him back to his cell where he can rot! He's the one who did it! Lyre, I was right the first time! He killed him! I feel a guard's arm wrap around my head as they try to gag me. Lyle! Look around the room, but I don't see him anywhere. Liz and Leaf are standing there shocked, Leaf slowly inching towards Adrius, trying to help him. It was him! Adrius killed... The guard shoves what I think is a rag into my mouth, put it on both sides and tightening it. Nobles are rushing to Adrius' side and the crowd behind us is in a commotion. I hear people running around adding more to the chaos. Adrius, please. Let me... Where's Lyle? This comes out as a whisper. I almost pick up a hint of fear in his voice and not know where Lyle is. Where is that dog? I want him put down now! Where is he? Don't just stand around. Find him. Let's have the gates of the city closed. Nobody's getting in or out until that mutt is found. The guards lift me and start to drag me out to the throne room. Your head will roll in the dirt, bastard! Everything feels like it's moving at half the speed, and all I can do is watch as the chaos ensues. Let go of me! Trying to wiggle out and stop the guards. As I do it, one of them brings their fist back and slams it into my face. So, we know who done it.
hope I can get across the absolute dislike I have of Adrius, along with him being so weak and cowardly, and the only way he can get away then is being a king, in the voice I'm giving him, because I can't stand the guy. Nothing like a little weak bully who gets a position of power. So be put him down, he needs to be put down. But that's enough of the editorial about the state of Lyre. Yes, I'm not a monarchist, if you hadn't ever figured that one out. I hope you enjoyed that. That was the end of chapter 11. There are 2 more chapters of Lyre to go. Might be 3-4 more episodes, I'm not sure. I'll have to see how long they are. I haven't actually got too much farther than this myself, so there will be more Lyre coming up, don't worry. We are going right to the end of this book, and I believe Atmac has more on the way for us in a while. But before I do go, and before we come with those, as always, I want to say a big thank you to all my donors on Ko-fi and Patreon. You are very much appreciated, and I still have to get on with something which I had mentioned to you a while ago, but things have been busy, so we'll be getting on with that soon. But a special mention to Kartek, Kovas Visser, Brian Hall, Bastian, Tiger Cub, Ida Corval, Dissonance, Grizz, Spiderling, Kopi, Cindy Dragowolf, Evan King, Exact, Aaron Fox, Mohammed Al-Zamel, Andy Peng, Smuto, Omar, Nova Starburn, Harvest Mouse Productions, Bieka, Rafu, Mario Cervantes, and Matt Kenya. Special thanks to all of you, my top patrons. And of course, Lyre has a patron, and also stuff on Paw Print Press if you'd like to help support Atmac, who makes this. Next couple of videos will be returning to Burrows and Ken's route, and then after that, the Smoke Room on William's route. Nick just got an update, patron only, so we'll be doing Will soon, and then while we'll do Nick's latest update, and then we'll get another one. So that's the next couple of episodes coming up of those series. So that's it. And as we're about to play out with the Requiem Symphony, thanks for watching. Bye for now.